Okay, so get this. We're talking about a guy, right? This guy swindled billions with a B from people. And not just any people. We're talking like some of the brightest minds in finance. Celebrities, charities, Bernie Madoff. This guy pulled off one of the biggest financial scams in history. And what's crazier, he did it all with a smile and a handshake. Wild, right?
It's unbelievable.
So what we're diving into today, it's more than just numbers, It's about how easily trust can be manipulated, how our own desires, they can really blind us,
Right.
and how even the most, sophisticated systems, they can be totally gamed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this story, it really makes you question everything.
Totally. So before we get into the how, let's talk about the who.
Yeah.
Bernie Madoff, he wasn't some shady character working out of his basement. This guy was practically Wall Street royalty.
So totally.
He had the connections, the reputation.
He was the guy people wanted to be seen with.
Exactly.
Madoff had this air of, I know something you don't. And people were practically throwing money at him for a chance to be a part of it.
Crazy.
He understood that exclusivity, it breeds desire. It's like that velvet rope outside a club. Suddenly, everyone wants in.
Totally. It's like he created this exclusive club of investors, and the price of admission was, trusting him with your life savings, and people were lining up to get in.
It's wild.
But how did he get away with it for so long? I mean, we're talking decades, billions of dollars. How do you even hide that much money?
Well, that's where the whole Ponzi scheme thing comes in. It's actually a pretty simple concept when you break it down. Madoff wasn't actually investing the money.
He wasn't.
No. Instead, he was using new investors' money to pay off the old investors, all while pocketing a hefty chunk for himself.
So it's like a giant financial pyramid scheme.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Madoff, he was a master at, dressing it up, making it seem all sophisticated and, even foolproof. And the returns seemed too good to pass up.
Yeah.
Consistent, above average year after year.
Okay, so maybe I buy into it. I'm feeling lucky. But wouldn't someone somewhere have noticed something was off? Auditors, regulators, anyone.
That's the thing about these schemes. They thrive on secrecy and a lack of transparency. Madoff went to great lengths to keep his investors in the dark, discouraging them from asking too many questions. Plus, he was dealing with some, seriously sophisticated investors, right? People with Ivy League degrees, years of experience, and he still managed to outsmart them.
It's amazing how easily our own desire to believe in something can just cloud our judgment.
Absolutely. Madoff tapped into this very, fundamental human desire. We all want to believe that there's an easier path to wealth, a shortcut to success.
Right.
And when everyone around you is seemingly reaping the rewards, it's hard to resist that pull.
And let's face it, questioning success is never easy, especially when that success is tied to someone as charismatic and well-connected as Madoff, who wants to be the party pooper who calls out the emperor's new clothes, right?
Right, and Madoff counted on that.
Yeah.
He fostered a culture of silence, where people were afraid to speak up for fear of looking foolish or missing out.
So the money keeps pouring in, the good times are rolling. But like all Ponzi schemes, eventually the music has to stop. And for Madoff, the music stopped pretty abruptly with the 2008 financial crisis.
Exactly. The crisis was like yanking the rug out from under Madoff's carefully constructed house of cards. Suddenly, investors were panicking, everyone wanted their money out, and there simply wasn't enough to go around.
And that's when the whole thing unraveled.
It all came crashing down. The illusion of invincibility, it was shattered, and the true cost of Madoff's deception, it was finally revealed.
And this is where the story goes from being about numbers on a spreadsheet to real lives shattered. We're talking billions of dollars gone overnight. People losing their life savings, their homes, their futures. We're talking billions of dollars gone overnight. People losing their life savings, their homes, their futures. It's almost impossible to grasp the scale of the devastation.
Yeah, and it wasn't just about the money, right? Imagine that feeling of betrayal, the realization that someone you trusted, someone who was practically family,
Right.
had been lying to you for years.
It's like this gut punch of realizing that the life you built was based on a lie. And not just any lie, a lie that was carefully crafted and maintained by someone who knew exactly what they were doing, someone who was playing with people's lives like pawns in some game.
Yeah, and we can't forget, these weren't just faceless corporations or wealthy investors. Madoff, he preyed on charities, universities, pension funds.
Oh, wow.
Organizations that relied on that money to support vital services, help countless people.
It's like a ripple effect of destruction, spreading out far beyond Wall Street to touch the lives of everyday people who had nothing to do with, high finance.
Exactly. And that's something that's often overlooked when we talk about white-collar crime. The human cost, the shattered lives, the erosion of trust. Those are the invisible scars left behind by scams like this.
So Madoff's scheme finally implodes. The feds move in. He gets sentenced to 150 years. Justice is served, right?
Well,
But what good is a prison sentence when so much damage has already been done?
that's the question, isn't it? How do you even begin to repair that damage? To rebuild trust in a system that allowed something like this to happen?
It makes you wonder, like, could there be another Madoff out there right now? Someone just as charming, just as persuasive, weaving a web of deceit that we haven't uncovered yet.
It's a scary thought. But
Yeah.
it's the reality we live in. There will always be people who are willing to exploit others for their own gain, no matter the cost.
So what can we do? How do we protect ourselves, not just from another Madoff, but from all the other scams and schemes that are out there?
Knowledge is power. We need to educate ourselves about how these schemes work. Be wary of promises of easy money, Understand that if something seems too good to be true, it probably is.
Right.
And maybe just as importantly, we need to be willing to ask those tough questions, to not be afraid to rock the boat if something feels off. Even if it means questioning someone who seems successful, even if it means being the only voice in the room raising a concern.
Right.
Because the cost of silence, as we've seen with Madoff, it can be devastating.
Yeah, it's a sobering thought, but a necessary one. We can't change the past, but by understanding what happened, by learning from the mistakes that were made, we can hopefully create a safer, more transparent financial future. And on that note, we'll leave you with this. What lessons have you learned from the Madoff affair, and how can you apply those lessons to your own life?